Story 1. I think someone is playing with me. This is going to sound a little crazy, but I need some advice anyway. Just want to start by saying that I've never had any problems with paranoia, delusions, or psychosis, and I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. I'm also 35 years old now, so it's unlikely that those type of mental issues would arise at such a late age. That being said, I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm pretty sure someone moves small things in my apartment when I'm not home. I live alone and no one, as far as I know, has a key to my apartment. I have 2 keys and both are in my possession. I have checked several times. I have tried putting glasses and plates on the table as a test before I go to work, and have taken pictures of them to compare with the pictures when I get home. So far, I have not been successful in proving anything. The most obvious things that I have noticed that have moved are a plate I had breakfast on that day moved maybe 30 centimeters from where I put it. Candles have moved from the center of the coffee table to the edge of the table, and a shampoo bottle has moved from one shelf to another that I never used to store shampoo on. There are several other things I have noticed, but they are very small things that maybe not could be me now that I am so aware of where everything is. My ex-boyfriend had the key to my apartment for many years before we broke up 2 years ago. We didn't fall out, and he has a new girlfriend now, so I'm 99% sure it's not him. He also works in Copenhagen now several days a week, while I live in Jutland. I have asked him on days when things have moved, where he was, and he has been in Copenhagen all those days. He shared his location on Messenger, so that was enough. What would you do? I have no evidence of anything, and in principle, I could have been sleepwalking or something, and just not noticed the changes until I got back home from work. I occasionally sleepwalked as a child, but as far as I know, it hasn't happened in maybe 25 years. It's starting to get pretty creepy. Top comments. GFXJEG. There is a well-known Reddit thread that sounds very similar to what you describe. It turned out that the person had severe carbon monoxide poisoning that created paranoia and delusions. I would strongly advise you to see if you can find somewhere else to sleep for the next few nights and then buy a detector. They are available at Bauhaus and the like. Maybe it's not, maybe you're just forgetful, but if it's carbon monoxide, you're messing with your life. OOP. Thanks. I just Googled it. I'm staying with my parents tonight, and then I'll buy a carbon monoxide detector tomorrow, just in case. Black Seal. If that doesn't work, then you can buy a wildlife camera and set it up. It takes pictures when there is movement, so you can see if you are doing it in your sleep or what. Update. Hi again everyone, smiley face. A lot has happened since I wrote the post. I figured out what's up with the situation. I bought 2 cameras and set one up in the living room/kitchen and one in the entrance hall. It turns out my apartment actually has 3 keys and not 2, as I thought. My neighbor, also 35 years old, apparently looked after the previous tenant's cat occasionally and had a key to their apartment. She didn't return it after they moved out of what is now my apartment. We were pretty good friends to start with when I moved in, but she became more and more clingy to the extent that she would call up to 15 times a day and talk for over 4 hours in total per day. I couldn't even leave the apartment without her wanting to know where I was going, and she would get angry if I didn't respond immediately to her messages, if I was asleep or busy. There was so much drama surrounding her that I couldn't take it anymore, and chose to completely cut off contact. She has respected that for the most part, I thought. It turns out that she has let herself into my apartment and gone through my cupboards and drawers, and apparently deliberately moved my things around to make me paranoid. She can hear when I go in and out of my apartment, because her entrance is only 5 meters from mine. That's why she always knew when I wasn't home, even though I worked shifting hours. I confronted her and said that I would call the police. She panicked and contacted her father, who came over to me. He is a doctor and said that she has borderline personality disorder and refuses treatment because she doesn't think she's wrong. He said she is impulsive, outwardly reacting, and often feels a strong urge to revenge herself on people who she feels have treated her unfairly or let her down. This has apparently been a theme throughout her life with almost all her relationships, romantic and friendships. He practically begged me not to call the police and said that he would do everything he can to prevent anything similar from happening again. I got him to pay for a locksmith to change the lock, and I said that I would report her to the housing association, who would then report her to the police if she didn't voluntarily move out of the apartment as soon as possible, because I don't want her as a neighbor anymore. They both accepted that, and she has now chosen to move back to her parents at the end of February. So the ending was relatively good for me, albeit very chaotic. Top comments. Busy Shrew. She made the produce wildly uncomfortable. Holy shit. The fact that there actually was someone riffling through Op's apartment for real is just so creepy. Sugar can kiss my ass. Yikes, I definitely would have called the police the second Dad left that conversation, but that's just me. Lovely Liz. You can either come in the jar or me, but not both. Yeah, the neighbor needs to learn that her actions have consequences, and that going unmedicated is not an option. She's a severe danger to others if she thinks it's okay to trespass in others' apartments and just call Daddy to bail her out. OP is lucky she just wanted to try and make her paranoid. What happens when one day she decides to get revenge through violence? Or tampered with OP's food? Story 2. I refused to give free legal advice to my friend and her boyfriend. Friend's boyfriend went nuts. Just wanting some perspective on this. Throwaway for the obvious reasons. Bit of background info. Julie is a good friend from school. We used to be close, but have drifted apart and don't see each other as much as we used to. John is her boyfriend. We used to be close, but he has been cold towards me recently. They have both opened up a business, and I am a lawyer at a decent-sized firm. A few days ago, I get a text from my good friend Julie out of the blue wanting to meet up. I was thrilled because Julie has bailed the last couple of times I have organized things. We meet up, but the whole time Julie keeps fishing for free legal advice about her business, which I politely refused. I refused for many reasons. She sought advice in an area of law I have minimal experience in. It goes against the conditions of my practicing license. What she wanted me to do would take up most of my limited free time, and in my jurisdiction there are rules and lots of warnings against giving free legal advice to friends and family. It has the potential to ruin my career, a career which I have just began. I also don't want to mix my professional and personal life. The area of law I practice in is emotionally draining and intensive. I love it, but for the purposes of self-preservation, I want my spare time to be work-free. While I am more than happy to lend a sympathetic ear to friends, I find it a bit much to continuously put on my lawyer hat and provide solutions, opinions, and dish out free legal advice to everyone that asks. It's not a nice feeling to know you are being taken advantage of. I politely refused Julie, and told her that I really wasn't comfortable to give away free legal advice, but if she wanted recommendations, I would gladly provide her with a list of capable lawyers. She said it was okay, and we had a meaningful chat. It was really pleasant to be able to speak to her again. Last night, I was at a catch-up dinner with a couple of friends and RSOs. Julie and John happened to be there, and were giving me the cold shoulder. I ignored it for most of the night, until we took our seats at the table. John started making all these snide remarks about lawyers, the usual stereotypes about lawyers. I laughed it off, as did everyone else. However, things took a turn for the worse, and his comments got oh so nasty and personal. He said horrible things like I must be sleeping my way to the top, that I must have connections to have gotten my job, that I am unethical / lack moral virtue like all lawyers, that I am greedy, And the icing on the cake, you must not be a good lawyer because you were unable to help us with our simple legal problem. I was pretty pissed off because who the fuck does something like this over a dinner? It was horrible, awkward, and just mean. I was mortified and didn't know what to say/do. I felt so small. I ended up excusing myself from the table to go cry. Come back, evidently look like I have been crying, and now John is pissed, saying that I can't take a joke/have no sense of humor. Wake up in the morning being bombarded with text messages from John and Julie about how I am horrible, how I made them look bad, what, and how this would all have been avoided if I just helped them in the first place. I responded and said if I ever was going to help them, they've blown their chances based on how they have acted. John has lost the plot and has been sending me menacing messages and has threatened to ruin me. Reddit, how the hell do I handle this? Relevant comments. Here comes Curry. I would wash my hands of these friends if I were you. You have every right in the world refuse to have your free time infiltrated by those close to you digging for legal advice. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't most lawyers offer free consultations? Couldn't they have just as easily made a proper appointment with you during your office hours? Hold your ground. If they wanted to shed light on this whole thing to ruin you, they would end up humiliated, and you would receive a pat on the back from your employers for 1, being loyal to their firm, 2, being loyal and respectful to yourself. What you do is worth something, and people who come around only when they want something aren't worth gifting it to for free. If you are worried, I would bring this situation to a season higher up at the firm. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place. I'm irritated for you and a little under the weather. OOP. Thanks so much for this. It's made me feel a bit better. What annoyed me the most is how they made me out to be this super selfish, greedy asshole that doesn't give a second thought about my friends. It is offensive because I am nothing like that and have done so much for them in the past. How the only reason why John is living in my country is because I wrote an amazing stat deck about him and his relationship. What they want me to do is fucking time consuming, and as I said, out of my area of expertise. I don't want to finish my exhausting, draining day of solving other people's problems, to be bogged down in researching and solving the problems of someone ungrateful. I guess most of all I am pissed off because I didn't think that this would end a friendship. Normally the relationship ends after you dish out free legal advice, not before. Update. So first things first, thank you so much to everyone that responded. I'm surprised that my post gained the amount of attention that it is. I honestly can't express how thankful I am to all the PMs I got expressing concern. It's nice to know that there are some really awesome people out there that care enough to listen and help me in my time of need. In the original post, I expressed concern about John sending me really nasty text messages. I know a lot of people were telling me that I should go to the police and make a report. In the end, I decided not to. Long story short, John is not a citizen of my country and is actually going to an interview in the next coming weeks, along with Julie, to cement his status as a permanent resident of my country. Part of this process is basically having a squeaky clean record and the full and frank disclosure of criminal activity/antisocial behavior. Since I am a character reference that I provided in a non-legal capacity and wrote a really nice letter for John, this was before all the drama, it wouldn't look good for him. I have no interest in ruining both his and Julia's life, no matter how terrible, rude, or mean they are, so I didn't want to make a report. However, I sent one text message to both John and Julie which basically said that if he did not stop harassing me, then I would have no choice but to go to the police and file a formal report. I have kept copies of these text messages if I need to, and have blocked their numbers, and have gone into a social media lockdown. In regards to my professional concerns, Every Monday, I have a standing appointment with my supervising solicitor to debrief about work and any problems that arise from work. As I mentioned in the original thread, I practice in family law and deal with a lot of at-risk and vulnerable kids, most of whom are victims of abuse, so the appointment goes beyond the realm of legal work. I discussed what happened with John and Julie and asked for her professional opinion. She was actually shocked with the whole situation. Had to show her the text to prove it actually happened. She basically said that there is no way in the world that John and Julie could get me into trouble because I didn't do anything wrong. She also said that because she knows how hard I work and how many hours I put in at work, coupled with my known distaste of corporate/commercial law, that she has no qualms in backing me up in the unlikely event that Julie and John try to cause me professional dramas. She also advised me to call the Bar Association to preempt any problems, but the Bar Association said that I did the right thing, and that unless they have legitimate evidence that proves that I have given them any advice or have done anything wrong, then I am in the clear. So it looks as though I am all good on that front. A very good friend of mine that was at the dinner where John exploded has sort of been talking to Julie and John and letting me know what was going on. My friend, Jane, told me that John wanted to make a formal complaint/start something. She wasn't too sure of the exact details, but she shot him down and said that is no way appropriate, acceptable, or ethical, and that she or our circle of friends would want anything to do with either John or Julie. After this, Jane has told me that she wants nothing to do with either of them, and listed off the number of times I have been there for both of them, and how stupid they're being. Jane also told me that the reason why no one intervened at the dinner party was because no one knew what to say. John has always presented himself as being the nice guy and the perfect boyfriend. His behavior was completely left field and out of character, that people genuinely didn't know how to react. Julie has always spoken so highly about John, how perfect he is, how lucky she is to have him, and how we all need to find our John. It sort of brought to light a few things about him and their relationship, a few odd things that no one could put their finger on. No one's relationship is as perfect as John and Julie. Long story short, it made a lot of people reconsider how they thought about them both. Someone in the original post pointed out that their outburst and insistence for help is probably symptomatic of a bigger problem. Whoever said that was correct. Around a year ago, both Julie and John bought into a business. I don't know the specific details, but at the time, John and Julie approached me and asked for some legal advice, which I declined. I was in my final semester of law school, and because they didn't want to pay for a lawyer to draw up contracts/look over things. At that time, John was really dismissive of paying for legal advice, and said that he was more than capable of handling it himself. Turns out he did a really terrible job. They are losing money, owe a lot of people money, angered a lot of people, and both he and Julie are generally been screwed over by a contract in place. This is what Jane has told me. I feel bad for them, I really do, but there is literally nothing I can do. Yeah, I am a lawyer, but as I have stated time and time again, it is not in an area of law I practice in. It's like asking a cardiologist to perform a lobotomy. My expertise is family law. While I have a rudimentary knowledge of business law/corporate law, the kind of advice they need is beyond the scope of anything I can help them with. After much thought though, even if I had the ability, I don't know if I would want to. The sense of entitlement they have, and the flagrant disrespect they have both shown to me has really upset me. While John has been a monumental douche, what really stings the most is Julie. She was meant to be an old friend, but it just really fucking hurts. I mean, imagine trying over and over again to meet up with a friend, but they continuously bail on you. Then out of the blue they meet up with you. But instead of exchanging pleasantries, nope, I didn't even get a token "how are you going?" A pile of papers get thrust in your hands, dozens of rapid-fire questions about the law, demands to call people for them, requests to write carefully crafted letters in your name on your office stationery, contracts, and documents to look over. Fuck that noise. I don't want to finish work, only to be inundated with more work. I know that I have been used, but what's worse is the disrespect. The whole lawyer jokes that were barely disguised attacks on me, the thought process that she'll do a whole heap of work for us, just because. How someone can even get into that mindset astonishes me. Julie hasn't bothered to speak to me, and I have no intention to speak to her. Jane has said that Julie doesn't really show any remorse, and while she understands my reluctance to not get involved, thinks that I should be doing more. Fuck her, and fuck doing more. I've done so much for her and John. I've written statements to help his visa application. I have recommended customers to their store. I have helped them move from home to home. I have given them a list of lawyers to contact in regards to their situation. I've been there when Julie's grandfather passed away. More must mean doing what they want for them. It has been a hard, harsh lesson, but the friend I thought I have never really was a friend. TLDR cut Julie and John out of my life. Found out John exploded due to his stupidity. Professional reputation remains intact. Final comments. Mary Dabbert 73. From the distance of the internet, I suggest for sending your recommendation letter. Although you did it as a part of your personal relationship, it carries more weight than a letter from a non-professional. The ethical and other promised and declarations you made upon becoming legal to practice give your recommendation more weight, and to maintain those standards you should also rescind a declaration you can no longer honestly make. Do you really want this guy, who's bizarre stalkerish and potentially abusive? Assuming that is the funny feeling you are getting their relationship, behavior scares you to become a legal citizen? He knows he's to behave good while on a visa. Can you imagine how he'll behave once he's legal? Actions have consequences. Don't protect him from his due consequences. OOP. I wish I could, but unfortunately that time has passed. I wrote the letter over a year ago, when I was not a practicing solicitor and still a law student. It is not linked to me professionally. It was done, as is stated on the letter, in the context of a friend who has known the couple for an extended period of time. It was essentially a letter that spoke, in part, about John's character, who at the time I thought was a standout guy, and the legitimacy of John and Julie's relationship, which I still think is legit. No legal jargon. I wouldn't even know how to go about rescinding the letter because as far as I am aware, the part of that process that I was involved in is long past.